Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell out before you blow up a plane.
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what, good to say I dabbled in stand-up or something. I have no disrespect for you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Rumble, Rockfin, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, even sometimes. It's so crazy to not have any stand-up gigs to promote, but my only gig now is laying low until a baby slides out of me. Speaking of the baby, and I'm sorry again, I couldn't help myself. I had to do an April Fool's joke yesterday and tell everybody that I was going into labor. So I'm sorry that you suckers fell for that. But there's still time to participate in the baby pool. All you have to do is Venmo my good friend Gino Bisconti $10 with the date, weight, and time, and you will be entered to win a buttload of cash. So when you send in $10, I think $5 goes to the baby diapers. I didn't realize how many I needed to buy. I thought they would go through like one. I thought they would use one a day. Turns out it's more than that. And the winner keeps the other $5. I think there's probably hundreds of dollars in there at this point. Or who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind and the winner of the baby pool will win the baby. It depends how freaked out I get. But I am due on the 19th, which is like pretty darn soon. So Venmo Gino Bisconti $10, date, weight, and time, and you will be entered to win all of the cash and prizes. Well, really, it's just the cash and bragging rights. Okay. You know him. You love him. So excited he could jump on the stream today. His new book is out. It's available now. It's called The Queering of the American Child. He is one of my favorite thinkers. I'm calling him a thought leader. That's right. I'm doing it. He's a treat for the eyes and the ears. Welcome back to the show, Mr. James Lindsay.
Hey, yay. I think that's like the most anybody's ever clapped for me.
What? You deserve all the claps.
Yeah, more claps. No, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's going to be a fun one.
Speaking of the clap, they test pregnant women for chlamydia. Did you know this?
No.
Yeah. It's pretty. I'm like, I was a little offended. They they also sneakily test for HIV, and I'm like, I'm a married woman, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, like you've been there all along. Like the baby hasn't like snuck out into any dark alleys, done any shady stuff. Like, what are they thinking?
No. And there's a hepatitis B shot that they offer as soon as he comes out. But again, I've talked to so many doctors that don't even think that is necessary, because it's not like he's going to be exposed to hard drugs, right away.
Yeah,
so why
well,
would you need a Hep B shot?
I think hepatitis B shot is Latin for autism shot, but I'm not positive.
They're like, look, we have a lot of autism drugs we want to sell, and we just want to know if you're going to be a good candidate or not.
Every time I make an autism joke, by the way, because I made one on Rogan, like, oh my God, I'm going to get like so much like sensitivity training sent to me now for the next like 2 weeks. It's so bad.
Oh my God, that's right. You were on Rogan. How was it? I was so excited to see that.
Oh, I went I didn't even go full tinfoil hat, but I went pretty tinfoil hat with Rogan, which, Joe is a very open-minded and thoughtful guy, but he's usually not quite ready for that. But he was tracking, and I was shocked.
Did you know what you were going to talk about before you went on? Were you anxious?
No and
he
no.
sent you like a plan in advance?
Okay, that's preposterous. Joe Rogan does not send plans in advance. Joe Rogan shows up somewhat minutes late, and then he like rolls into the bathroom, and then we roll into the studio and go. There is no plan. I usually have some thoughts in advance. I don't really get nervous anymore. And now it's like I kind of know Joe, so we're like it's like kind of hanging out with a buddy
You're
in a sense.
bros.
We're
You're
not quite bros, but we're getting to I mean, I don't want to claim it. Maybe he thinks we're bros. And if so, yeah, I'm totally bros. But I mean, I like him. We hang out. Like we've actually hung out outside of the show, which is kind of fun.
Oh.
A couple of times actually. But at any rate, no plan. I usually think up some stuff I want to talk about. And I had like no capacity going into it the few days before, the night before in the hotel, the morning in the hotel. I'm like, I can't think of a damn thing that I specifically want to talk about. So I'm just going to go with whatever the conversation comes up to go to, and we're just going to do it. And all these people are saying it was really great.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I would be so anxious, and because it what his show goes. I mean, what's the even shortest Joe Rogan podcast? It's
Oh,
gotta
it
be
was
longer
3
than
hours.
3
It
hours.
was
You get 3
yeah.
hours. There's nowhere to hide.
Yeah,
all
and then like it's only going to be like 10, 12 million people going to see it.
Yeah, only 10, 12 million people. Nothing crazy. Did you notice a big boost in following in traffic to new discourses after the appearance?
Nay, lady, I did not. It's really funny. I think I saturated my market or something because, like, I got the first time I went on Rogan, I got like 80,000 followers on Twitter in like 2 weeks. And I got so many followers, they like locked me out of my account for 12 hours for like suspicious activity because I guess they thought I was like buying bots or something. And then
Wow.
this time, I think I got a whopping like 5, maybe 6,000 total. Like we've got some market saturation in the Joe Rogan demographic, I think. I did, however, it's kind of funny because I've been under like all kinds of shadow ban and lockdown on Instagram forever. And I actually got a lot, proportionally speaking, of new Instagram followers, which is kind of nice. But it seems that they lifted my super awful shadow ban like 3 or 4 days before I went on Rogan. So then I got like a few thousand followers on Insta, which is huge for me because I run the stupidest Instagram on the planet. Which is to say, I pay somebody who takes exactly what I put on Twitter and puts it on Instagram, and it doesn't really translate across, so it looks really stupid. And I get people telling me like, dude, your Twitter is lit, but your Instagram's so bad. And I'm like, I know, I don't even do it. But at any rate, I still got a lot of followers on Instagram, but not like tens of thousands or anything.
I think that's a good sign because it's who's on Instagram. It's women, and it's mostly, I would say, people under 30. So I think that's
Yeah, that's the
that
target
gives you
demographic.
yeah, you're breaking new ground. You're definitely attracting new people there.
I like
And
these words that you're using. I
I
like the
yes, of course.
attracting new people,
Attracting new
breaking ground.
people. Yeah, you're pulling in some new peeps. And
Yeah, I'm
again, like
pulling.
don't feel bad about Instagram. Instagram is for thirst traps mainly.
I know I should post more.
So and what are you gonna do? Will you pose with your shirt off? That's not good for your brand. Who
It
knows?
would
Maybe
be.
it would be. It would be a different side, at the softer side of
It's
James.
like when I got recruited for OnlyFans. Did I ever tell you that story?
What? No, you did not.
Literally, it was some woman named Louisa. She called me. Like she sent me a DM on Twitter and was like, "We want you to be an influencer on Instagram or on OnlyFans." I'm like, "The hell? I'm going to talk to this woman." So like I started texting her back or whatever, and I was like, "Do you know what I do?" And she's like, "Well, kinda." And I'm like, "You don't." Okay, so it's like I finally got to the point where it was like, "Well, what would I do on there?" And she's like, "Basically, whatever you want." And I was like, "So like I kind of know the brand, and I like read philosophy, like on a podcast. So should I like read philosophy in my underwear?" And she, with so much enthusiasm, was like, "You could."
Just do what you normally do, but shirtless or at the gym posing in front of a mirror.
Yeah, what I should do is put on some like really tight shorts and like be super awkward in public at the gym, like all of these thirst trap idiots. It's like I kind of don't mind a thirst trap, but really, could you not do that at like Home Depot? Like that's freaking cringe.
And then watch your gay subscribers go through
Oh,
the
that's
yeah.
how that works. That's the reality right there. There's the sell the dream, service the nightmare.
So when you say you treaded into the tinfoil hat territory with Joe Rogan, what What do you specifically mean by that?
Okay, so tinfoil hat, just to be, a little nerdy and define it for people, means you're insinuating there might be conspiracies afoot, that there might be
What?
intentional destruction of our societies. And so right out of the gate, like I didn't know where we were going to go. We didn't talk. Welcome, gay people. Is I'm big with the gays. I see a gay
We
people
love the
subscribe.
gays.
I do love the gays. The gays also love me, and I only have one gay person who sends me like inappropriate crap. So all of the gays have been super well behaved for me too, which has been awesome.
We could get those numbers up though. Come on, gays. It's
Well,
almost springtime.
yeah, right. Yikes. I'm working on my summer body gaze. It's time. No, so right off the bat, he wanted to talk about immigration. And I had no idea what we were going to talk about first. I really wasn't expecting us to get straight into it. And so I'm like, there's a strategy behind that, right? Like immediately. And we started making jokes about the tinfoil hat. And I told him about the Cloward-Piven strategy, which is this really old communist strategy that was put forth by a couple people, Cloward and Piven. And
Not Jeremy Piven. I probably an
no,
older Piven.
but it turns out that the goal, he's like, can you explain it? And I was like, shit, they already changed the Wikipedia entry. What do I do? I can't remember what the paragraph said. No, I'm just kidding. But that's true. By the way, they did change the Wikipedia entry after Charlie Kirk blew it up. And I talked about it on Rogan, like a few days later. They deleted the entire first paragraph that explains what the Cloward-Piven strategy is and turned it into like this. See, it's a little tiny short thing. It used to be a paragraph that said that it was a strategy that to break a society, that you overwhelm its social services using immigration by increasing all of these different dependency programs and by jamming up the national debt and that kind of stuff. And now it's just this little stub. They literally changed the Wikipedia entry in light of Charlie Kirk and I talking about it literally a few days before he's got his own huge platform and I put it on Joe Rogan, and they changed the Wikipedia the next day. So do you wonder like if the strategy is real? Of course it's real. They just changed the Wikipedia over it being exposed. So and we know who's editing Wikipedia. We know it's the CIA editing Wikipedia. It's not just some tanky.
And right now it says the strategy aims to utilize militant anti-poverty groups to facilitate a political crisis by overloading the welfare system. Okay, I mean, that's still true. That's still in there. Via an increase in welfare claims, forcing the creation of a system of guaranteed minimum income and redistributing income through the federal government, which leads so perfectly into this digital cattle theory. But
yeah, but this is so short compared to what it used to say. It used to talk about the running up the debt and the national deficit or the budget deficit. It talked about driving immigration. It talked about other aspects that are actually part of the strategy. And maybe it still says it down in the strategy part, but if you search on the Googs, it pops up just that first little snippet as the summary. So you're not getting the information unless you actually click through and scroll down and read. Totally sus.
They stated that the full enrollment of this it would produce bureaucratic disruption in welfare agencies and fiscal disruption in local and state governments that would deepen existing divisions among elements in the big city Democrat coalition. So this is to screw over the remaining white middle class, the working class ethnic groups, and the growing minority poor. So you flood the system with immigrants. They're gonna need services.
What's happening in the cities?
Yeah.
We're paying for services to migrants and who are the people that are mad? Who do you see on the news mad about it? It's not just Republican congressmen. It's black people. They're like, what the hell?
I was going to say it, but I didn't want to sound racist. I've seen
it's not racist to say who's on TV complaining about it and they have a right to.
Because I've seen, God, I don't remember his name, but he was basically, it was like a call to action to black people, like, hey, these illegals are taking your resources. And I didn't expect it to be put so bluntly like that.
They're not. I mean, they see it. It's obvious. But the thing is that who's pushing it? Well, who's keeping the border open? It's not Texas keeping the border open. It's not Republicans keeping the border open. Well, some of the traitor ones are, but straight up, the Democrats are like all in on this, and the Biden administration just keeps getting caught with it. So it's like, here you are, like you pushed your CRT or whatever, everybody, and now it's going to switch to immigrants. And sucks when the turn of the spiral of history leaves you behind and goes on to somebody else. Look at the feminists that still think that they can take back the mantle from trans. Same thing happened there.
Wow. So this is all to just basically take the resources away from the middle class that might be trying to get a leg up in life, start a business, you know, get out of who knows, Section 8
Yeah.
housing. Well, whatever it is, that's not middle class, but
And so that's the start of the tinfoil hat Rogan episode. I mean, that's like, it's not, I don't even know if that, it's more like that's like a parchment paper hat. Like we haven't even graduated to tinfoil by the Cloward-Piven strategy. But by the end, I'm telling him like all this shit that's happening with Boeing is intentional. It's happening on purpose. It's not just that they're made bad decisions. It's not just bean counters that came up with bad ideas. The ESG policies combined with other things, including the rise of a Chinese competitor, the future rise of a competitor called Boom Supersonic, is targeting Boeing is being targeted so that the market share of that class of aircraft, which would be the two primary classes that are being targeted, are the 737 service and the 787, 777 service, because they have a direct Chinese competitor, but they also have direct Airbus competitors. And they're hammering United Airlines over the other two airlines. And the reason is because in the last set of orders for new planes, if you ask me, they've mostly ordered Boeing jets instead of Airbus jets, whereas the other two ordered more Airbuses. And the goal is nobody's buying the Chinese jets yet. That's a Chinese thing. And that's all sus. I didn't even know. I looked into this more after I went on Rogan and talked about that Chinese jet. The company's called Comac. It's not even owned just by the CCP. It's owned by, very specifically, it's owned by the Chinese military. And so Trump back in the day, we're going full tinfoil hat, canceled any American relationships with Comac, along with like 59 or 58 other Chinese companies that have Chinese military ties. And then Biden took office, and you think, oh yeah, he just reversed all that. No, it turns out he didn't. He continued all of that, except for two companies, one of which is the airline, the Comac. So Biden made it so that we can actually, have investment and do business with Comac. So it's super sus. Like this Chinese competitor, the Comac C919 is a direct competitor that's just come out on the market last year to the 737, and they've got a 929 that's going to be a direct competitor to the 777 and 787 that Boeing produces. And so I was like, Joe, what's happening at Boeing? Like that whistleblower did not kill himself. Like that's ridiculous. He got Jeffrey Epstein here. And the thing is like something's being covered up big. And if you ask me, that the goal is actually to tank American manufacturing of jets. Airbus is a European company. Comac is a Chinese company. Boeing is actually our only big jet manufacturer in the United States. So that cripples us in the capacity to build things if we lose Boeing. And Boeing is getting hammered, partly well-deserved, partly because they're DEI stuff, partly because huge quality control issues and inspection issues. But what I suggested with my tinfoil hat, as hard on it as it'll go, is that this is intentional. Part of the program is in line. I talked about a document called Absolute Zero that was published by the British government and a bunch of their favorite universities in the UK in 2019. And it talks about how the goal is that by 2050, there will be absolutely zero flying, except of course, private jets for the elites. Absolutely zero commercial aviation. And by 2030, we're supposed to have like major hub airports only, like one or two per country, at least across Europe, and maybe a handful across the United States because of its size. But other than that, you can get their goal is like everything has to be light rail. And so all these nice, convenient regional flights, like if you want to go somewhere, no, you're going to have to fly to like some huge hub and then get on a train that I'm sure is like going to be designed by Pete Buttigieg and dump you into a poisoned lake or something in
so
Ohio.
your favorite small local airport that you like to use to do your regional flights, that will be no more. It seems like
According to that plan.
What they're trying to do, right? So I guess their goal for the next 6 years is turn people off, lower the demand for air travel, because they're trying to scare everybody with these doors and windows flying out. And like DEI, it's fun to joke about, but also people are genuinely concerned that the people flying are not the most confident. So it seems like they're trying to drive down demand so that they can make it look like, oh, well, people just aren't flying as much as they used to be, and then they can justify it.
That's exactly it. And I don't have hard proof that the thing in the Boeing is like a controlled demolition. So I'm not claiming that, but that is my suspicion as to what's going on. Just another fun piece of evidence, that you mentioned the door flying off on that Alaska Airlines 737 MAX. And the FBI sent a letter to everybody on that plane a couple of weeks ago. It made all the headlines again, saying that you are to consider yourself the victims of a crime. So they're investigating. The government is investigating what happened with that, and they're not saying it was an accident. They were saying it was a crime, which means there was criminal negligence or intention behind it, one or the other.
Oh my God. So, because usually you think the FBI reaches out to people, it's to scare them maybe into not talking about the incident, but
No, that's P. Diddy stuff.
oh God, poor P. Diddy. I don't feel bad at all.
That was a
He had a good run.
completely appropriate reaction, but on the other hand, the memes are on another level.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just for a couple of days I was getting steady just photos and videos like here's P. Diddy with Justin Bieber, and I'm like, oh yeah, I had just forgotten about his horrible Bieber comb over haircut that he was rocking for years.
No, I've just been seeing other memes, like when the boat ran into the bridge in Baltimore. Like somebody took that and turned it into a meme, and it showed the boat, and it said like P. Diddy or something like that. And then where the bridge is falling in, it said some wannabe rapper's butthole. And I was just like, I'm dead. I'm dead.
Oh my
Too
God.
good.
Oh my God. Well, this is pretty overwhelming. So really by 2030, which is pretty close, that's just around the corner. The goal is to only have international airports functioning.
No, not quite, but primarily that's 2050. Well, no, 2050 is no commercial travel. I'd have to look exactly whether it's 2030 or 2040 that they want only international flights. And again, the Boom Supersonic that I was telling Joe about comes out in 29, or I think is the year. So what is the Boom Supersonic? It's like the Concorde remake. And now I got lectured by some guy on my Instagram about this. So I'm going to have to say it more clearly to you because apparently they didn't understand what I was talking about. I said that the Boom Supersonic is as efficient as a 777, but it's supersonic, but it only seats 1/8 as many people. So what you can do the math is that tickets are going to have to cost at least 8 times as much, and maybe they'll cost more because it's a supersonic service and all of that. And of course, it's supersonic, so it can only fly internationally. You can't go supersonic over the continent. Okay, so I said this, and some guy's like, no, efficiency is calculated in what dollars per seat. No, brain genius. I'm talking about fuel efficiency. I'm talking about how much gas it costs to go 1 mile. And it turns out that they're roughly equivalent. And so what you are going to have then, though, is for the same amount of miles flown in terms of fuel costs, you're going to be able to take 1/8 the population, which means tickets are going to go way up. Now, I don't know about you. Tickets have already gone up. It's a pinch. I'm not going to drop $10,000 for a flight to Europe unless somebody else is paying for it. That's for absolute certain. So these days of like sometimes $600, $700, $800, or $1,000 tickets to go to Europe where you could take your family on vacation, like I think that's coming. Well, it's being pushed to an end. And I don't think that these things are I think that these things are happening intentionally with the intentions of shutting down demand and even supply for air travel so that it's a reserved right for the, as they pronounce it for themselves, elite of the world.
But what do the powers that be get out of that? Because are they truly going to make more money? Is it more profit just to service the elite and charge more?
No. Have you ever been to like a really nice, like famous beach or a really like the Mona Lisa or any of these like super tourist places? And
oh yeah,
you notice
Mona Lisa, big letdown. It was tiny. It was
very
boring.
very small painting, not that big. How was the crowd?
Oh, huge. You could barely.
Yeah, so imagine that you don't want all the riffraff in the way.
Was like 7 rows back.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine you want to be able to go to the museum and there's nobody else there because nobody can afford to travel. And so the crowds go down and all of the nice beaches and all the fancy places that people are being able to afford to go on vacation, you're not allowed to do that. Yeah, so dude in the comments has it. It's not about the money. It's about restricting movement. It's about keeping us home. It's about preventing us from having, meetings. Like if we wanted to go to like, we met each other in person finally at America Fest in December last year in Phoenix. And there was like 15,000 people there. Real hard to get there if people can't make regional flights.
Wow. No more America Fest. My God, I was going to do a comedy show. I had so many plans for the next one. No, this is very depressing and insane. So it's to
But
restrict a movement, and then ultimately restrict behavior.
I did not intend, just like I didn't have a plan with Joe, I didn't intend to have a full tinfoil hat conversation with you, except about the digital cattle, which is a super tinfoil hat concept. We'll fully admit that. But
Well, it
here
doesn't
we are.
seem tinfoil hat when you can back it up and you can walk someone through it. And
That's why I encourage people watching the episode of Rogan to watch less of my handsome face and more of Joe Rogan's blown mind face, where he's like, whoa. Like, because he's tracking. It's like he was like, wait a minute, that shit makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, and I wish it didn't make sense because it's super evil.
wow. So it is just wild because you think the powers that be are always going to be mainly motivated by money, but it's like, I guess they have all the money they could want, and what's more exciting than that is just control, right? People control, population control.
Well,
Control
what they end up with
behavior.
also, if this all works, is a small number of corporations that operate in monopoly. So in the end, they get more money because all the wealth of the middle class, some of it kind of disappears because it's not being generated anymore, but all of it basically concentrates in them. So this idea that there's going to be, 50-60% of the population that can afford nice things, that gets canceled. Where does all that money go? To poor people? Hell no, they're not giving it to poor people. It goes to the super rich people who own monopoly corporations. So in the end, they are still motivated by money, land ownership, and control of people.
Yeah, a bigger population of kind of lowest class, poverty class, immigration class that they can control, just and also take from the middle class. They can just kind of join that amoeba, and then I guess if you're still upper class, like best of luck to you.
People always ask me, like, why would a huge capitalist like David Rockefeller be into this? Because the Rockefeller Foundation like funded the hell out of this. Well, it's really simple. Back 100 and I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, they ran literally huge monopolies. They ran these scams that were called company towns, where what they did was, they owned the factory, and they owned the houses that people lived in to work at the factory, and they owned the store where you bought your stuff to get your groceries or whatever near the factory. They basically owned the whole town, and you could live there and they'd pay you to work at the factory, but it would work out to be just a little bit less than it costs to actually live, according to all the stuff like your rent and everything else and all these things that they also owned. So you go get a paycheck, you go work all day, 10-hour day or whatever, come home 6 days a week, make your paycheck, and you'd pay all of your paycheck back to company owned things. So the money never actually goes to you. It just stays in the system and you're allowed. This is basically feudalism reinvented. So we took that away from them by passing antitrust legislation. We took away the capacity for them to do monopoly manipulation of the population. Now imagine you're the people and you're like, yay, that's great. That's what we should do. That's good. That freed up all this innovation. That freed up all this. And I can go see the Mona Lisa, and David Rockefeller has to wait in line like everybody else. Or imagine you're David Rockefeller and you're like, sons of bitches stole my freaking company town and you want it back. So why are they motivated to do this? Because they want their monopoly positions back. That's why.
And access. Rich people love their access. They love their VIP treatment.
That's what I said that in the digital cattle thread I did on Twitter, is that one of the better jobs of the future is going, if this all goes down, is going to be servant, because they're still going to want to have the domination of dominating another human being. Yeah, the AI could actually do all the work and the robot could bring them their perfect latte, but they can make you do it and humiliate you in the process. And so I'm telling you that this is not like friendly, nice stuff. The technocratic oligarchs, as I refer to them, are not the friends of humanity. They think they're better than humanity, and to them, we're a little more than cows.
It's true. My last day job boss, he was in the hospital after a surgery. He handed me his full bedpan and I emptied it because I didn't want to lose my job. I guess I'm a nurse now.
Yuck.
Fun times. Yeah. He was on drugs.
Well,
post-surgery drugs, not fun drugs, but yeah, I didn't think I had the option not to. Good time.
So anyway, yeah. So full conspiracy, full tinfoil hat is where I'm at.
Oceana 23 says, speaking of foil hats, I want to hear Some hot red heifer sacrifice talk from James. What is this about?
You not know about this? Oh God. Okay, so there's a biblical prophecy. It's a Jewish prophecy that the temple will be rebuilt in Jerusalem, but only after the sacrifice of a perfectly red heifer. And so for a long time, they've been importing these cows from Texas to try to get a perfectly red heifer. And they inspect them very closely. And it's always like it has like one white hair or like 3 black hairs, or what. It's not perfect. So it doesn't count because that's what the sacrifice has to be.
They can't
So
just pluck them out like a grape.
no, apparently not. And so apparently what we've got now over in Israel is they sent 5 apparently candidate cows, and they've been inspecting them, and one of them got disqualified, but there are still 4 candidate cows that are now of the proper sacrifice age that they have not been able to disqualify. So technically they think they're going to be able to do this grand red heifer sacrifice, which is this kind of step of rebuilding the temple. Now, Christians have a belief that in their eschatology, their end times predictions, that the temple being rebuilt is part of the end of the world. It is part of Jesus coming back. Okay, so that's why there's this partnership between like evangelicals in Texas and the Israelis getting their perfect cow. Turns out they don't have exactly the same designs as to why they care about this, but it is supposed to signal the return of the Messiah or the advent of the Messiah when this is happening. Okay, so they have these 4 cows, and of what? So, all right, you say, speaking of tinfoil hats, Oceania, let's go all the effing way. They've decided a good day to do this will be the 8th of April. Now, these people are numerologists
Eclipse?
through and through. Yes, the eclipse, of course, on the eclipse, which occurs on an 8th. And 8s are magic numbers to them because an 8 is a lemniscate and it represents infinity. And so, of course, there are all these people. Now, let me just be very clear. You cannot predict a black swan, but they're all predicting a black swan event is likely to take place on the 8th of April because of the eclipse, because of all the rhetoric. I don't know why the FAA warned pilots about flying on the 8th of April during an eclipse. There's like no reason whatsoever. Like eclipses don't have
Really?
magic powers that disorient jets. It's like it just gets dark for a couple minutes. So I'm not exactly sure why they're doing it. There's not like magnetic fields. There's none of this like hippy dippy stuff. But at any rate, there's this warning that was given that doesn't make any sense. And apparently they're so you got this sacrifice they're looking at doing on the Mount of Olives. And then you've got the eclipse, and you've got that it's on an 8th. And they've also decided to turn the CERN particle accelerator back on the same day. And it's like, really? So, I mean, I don't know what all that portends. I'm not that into making these necessarily kind of guesses. But at a time when the evil people of the world are literally trying to act out or cosplay Armageddon so that they can get their way, I'm thinking that the people in Israel should probably stand down and maybe not sacrifice the freaking cow. Like maybe don't play into more. I'm not going to tell people. I mean, I'm already in trouble. Apparently I tell religious people how to do things. Actually, Christians are really mad that I tell Christians how to be Christian and I never tell Jews how to be Jews. Hey, Jews, don't sacrifice the fucking cow on the eclipse. Like, Jesus Christ.
Pick
like,
any other day.
like, yeah, seriously. Like, let's not play into end time fantasies here during a time where everything's already chaotic. Now, Christians will get mad about that because they want Jesus to come back. And it's like, oh God, I can't take all this. But okay, so there's some tinfoil hats about the red heifer sacrifice. I think that this is a terrible idea. I also don't believe that it's going to cause anything magical to happen, but I do believe that when people do religious rites, they have tremendous symbolic power that leads people to act in certain ways. In other words, they have reflexive potential, and reflexive potential often creates an awful lot of activity and action. So I'm not going to speculate as to what's really going to happen on the 8th, but I'm really going to be pissed if something really stupid happens on the 8th. And if it's a black swan event happens on the 8th, I'm going to suggest that it was really a white swan that the elites painted black and let loose on the world.
I'm wondering if I would qualify to be the 5th red heifer because I still have not had a single gray hair. I mean, I am chemically enhanced. This is dyed, but I absolutely qualify for the heifer aspect of this just because of my current state.
Yeah, that's true.
I wonder if maybe not.
That is a seriously important theory. We should call Israel right now. Hey, BB, have you considered Chrissie?
Oh, wait, wait a minute. I don't want to be sacrificed.
Oh,
Just kidding. Must Play Review says the opening speech, Metal Gear Solid for Guns of the Patriots, is about control, and it is the ultimate goal.
I mean, I kind of agree that I don't know. I don't play any video games, unfortunately, y'all. Although do support the gamers and the Gamergate too that's happening. Obviously, it turns out to be way bigger than anybody thought. Why is the Department of Homeland Security involved in that? Like in video
They're
games, really?
involved. That's a
Oh,
little
yeah,
strange.
because of course, because video games are a great way to propagandize people and in fact to actually kind of brainwash them. So video games, they saw video games as training tools for people. They've said so. And it's like, oh God. So we got to fight the Gamergate battle, but I'm not a gamer myself, just to confess. But the truth is that I do think that the ultimate goal is ultimate control, is to get us back. I mean, not in a I'm not being glib when I say this. It's literally to get us all back on the plantation, working for the super heavy duty elites as either serfs or slaves.
It makes sense because Hollywood used to be the go-to way to propagandize the public, and Hollywood has lost some ground and a ton of influence. So it makes sense that they would target video games next because
Video games are a huge industry. They have a huge audience. The thing is when you watch a movie, you can get into the story and you can get into the characters. But when you play a video game, you are the character. Like you're experiencing it in a sense very directly as a first person entity, but really truly vicariously in a completely different way. And so, and it turns out that video games, because you're getting, activity brings rewards. It turns out to be the perfect environment to experiment with operant conditioning. Aside from social media, I even read with the social media that when you open Instagram, it's got like a slight delay, and then it pops up like a little red flag telling you how many notifications you have. Then it's like 2 3/4 seconds later, it pops up whether or not you have any direct messages. It turns out that I don't know if it's true, but I read that they timed those delays so that it has the maximum anticipation point in your brain to release the largest amount of dopamine to keep you addicted to checking your Instagram for stuff. And video games are built that way too. Video games are actually built to give you the rewards that keep you playing the game and keep you more invested in the game. So of course, if they saw the opportunity to turn that into a brainwashing tool, they would jump on it. And this is why Gamergate 2, it turned out, it looked like, oh no, more crooked game journalism. And okay, next thing you know, it's like Department of Homeland Security is involved. Like, what's going on? Like, this is huge.
Wow, it makes perfect sense. Jeremy David James, have you ever spoken with ex-college policy debaters? I was nationally ranked a little over a decade ago, and the activity was saturated with critical argumentation, Foucault, Freire, etc.
I like watching you try to pronounce.
I haven't heard of Freire.
That's actually pronounced
Freire.
Freire. He's Brazilian. He wrote all the education theory he wrote this basically the operating system for our entire education system, which is called critical pedagogy. I have spoken with a couple of people who are on the college debate circuit, and they have told me as much, that it is utterly saturated with critical theory. Of course, that all blew up a couple of years ago too. There was like the Gamergate of debate kind of blew up over the whole internet too. So yeah, that's a huge thing. Like college debate is another domain that's completely captured. And I mean, frankly, like what's not captured? Like me, you, like
Right.
We're out. That's the list.
The viewers, of course, our beloved viewers and the people in the chat.
Yeah.
All 1,600 of us. My God, this is depressing, James.
No, it's exciting because finding out that you have cancer isn't the depression. Having cancer is. And when you find out, you can start treating it. So
That's true.
this is actually also more exciting because if you start to realize that it's intentional rather than organic, you don't have to think as much about there being like millions of actors that are actually causing the problem. There are actually probably only a few hundred actors who are causing the problem. And most of them probably operate on this principle that if one goes down, everybody's scared. And so it literally could be as much as one person getting held to account, going to prison for one of these things slipping up that could slow down the juggernaut, or somebody going to prison. And then, I mean, Jeffrey Epstein, we already talked about that. Why did Jeffrey Epstein not kill himself? Well, because he might have talked. He might have decided to throw his compatriots under the bus rather than rather than keep his mouth shut. So let's keep his mouth shut forever.
Or maybe he just was very self-conscious about his allegedly strangely shaped penis, which I've heard about.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I heard him and Harvey Weinstein had unfortunate shaped genitals.
Well, I can't relate.
I can't relate. I'm blessed. No, you're right. It's not a black pill because if you know it's intentional, it's not like it's organic. It's not just happening naturally. You're like, oh, okay, well, there's someone behind this, and we just got to figure out who that is and hold them to account. That's true.
And it's like, look at what's happening. You know, we've mentioned Epstein, we mentioned P. Diddy. Like, pieces are falling. Like, the longer this gets dragged out without them having total control, the more the story comes out and the more obvious it becomes. But more importantly, the more people become skeptical of it. And they are not actually likely to be able to implement a lot of their things if a bunch of people are saying no, or if we're skeptical. They need us to believe their crap. And we don't believe their crap anymore. I mean, some people do. Like, I have lots of friends who are still like, whatever CNN says. You know, it's like the new meme they're doing with the NPC. It's like, what are you mad about? And the little NPC person's looking at her phone and it says, I don't know. They haven't told me yet. But we know those people, but the proportion of them is shrinking and the proportion of us is growing. So I actually think that they're pushing things too hard and too fast, and they're actually shaking people loose. I think they're in a death spiral, to be honest with you. But they're going to do desperate and dangerous things like on the 8th.
I agree. And I think like a perfect example is the most recent Trans Visibility Day that was obviously the same day as Easter. And I've seen different conversations about whether this was intentional to piss off Christians and Catholics, or if it's just, I've seen people say, oh no, Biden has done this every year for the last couple of years. And then you look at the freaking alphabet holiday calendar and they've got 50 plus
145 of them.
145 holidays for a group of people that haven't done much to like help or shape this country, or, you know.
Can I say just the obvious about the Trans Day of Visibility? There's a really obvious thing to say, and it has nothing to do with the fact that the administration and a bunch of the Democrats went hard in the paint to push it on Easter with absolutely no demonstrated sensitivity to the conflict whatsoever between holidays, if we want to even recognize the fake one. No, here is the truly obvious thing, that this is evidence that we are not dealing with people whose rational faculties outweigh whatever else they've got going on in life, which is a very polite way to say stupid people. And it's this. Visibility is not helping these people.
No, clearly.
It's making every time there's visibility, it gets worse. And then it comes out that the man who I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at, that created Trans Day of Visibility looks literally like the Penguin from Batman.
He does. Oh my God. I just had this up. I was going to pull this up from your feed. It looks literally like Batman. And I've been seeing everybody compare the two. Oh my God.
It's like, no, yeah, like, geez. It's not like this is, where's Michael Keaton? Like,
meet Rachel Crandall Crocker, Trans Day of Visibility founder, and then this person, Dr. Roller Gator. My dear penguins, we stand on a great threshold. It's okay to be scared. Many of you won't be coming back. Thanks to Batman, the time has come to punish all God's children, first, second, third, and fourth born. Oh my God.
Why be biased?
Like, why, you know what? Like, why can't they get somebody good looking? You know what I mean? If they threw a Blair White or a Buck Angel up there, I'd be like, all right, I'm listening. They can never get anybody.
There's a lot of relative sanity going on there. But last year we celebrated Trans Day of Visibility with the school shooter. It's like visibility is not helping. And in fact, they planned it. They tried to play off of the V last year, and apparently I heard it was in LA County. They tried it again this time, but not really anywhere else. They were trying to sell it last year as Trans Day of Vengeance. And then
God, that's
and like 4 days beforehand, there was a school shooting done by a trans person. It's like, holy shit.
Who was literally taking vengeance, who in the Tranifesto, which took forever to be released, we could all see the vitriol, the bitterness this person had towards, I guess, what they perceived to be like middle or upper class classmates of theirs. Or
yeah. So that's the very politically incorrect part of the show. But the fact is that visibility is not helping their cause at this point. People are, as you may have noticed over the weekend, slightly pissed. Wait,
Hmm.
yeah, I did
More than
that perfectly timed.
more than slightly pissed. Yeah,
Yeah.
irate. It's God, and then there was like there's some other folks coming in to protest like an Easter service, and they were like either climate change
Oh
or
yeah, that was the
right.
climate change people. That's the Extinction Rebellion. I saw those lunatics in London in person a few years back, and they were literally like dancing around in the street, making like animal noises and then pretending to die because obviously that's what happens when you eat meat or something, and some of that's bad for the environment. They were like had a stalk of broccoli they put in the street and like did this like religious dance around a piece of broccoli. It was all like the stupidest performance art, but it blocked up all the streets around downtown, down by Trafalgar Square and Parliament. They were blocking up everything, and it was like a religious revival for the dumbest religion on earth.
Yeah, it's like take your broccoli and go to a cul-de-sac or a dead end. Take a street that's not in use. It's infuriating. Do you think? I think the average person is getting more and more pissed off. Do you think this kind of affects the powers that be? Are they kind of checking in with where the average person is at, how much bullshit they're tolerating? It just seems like they're going to push whatever they're going to push.
Well,
Uh,
no, it's registering with them, but that cuts two ways. So it's definitely registering with them, and we know it's registering with them because for like the last 2 or 3 years, and then officially this year, the Davos meeting of the World Economic Forum was outright branded rebuilding trust. They're like, holy shit, the people don't trust us. And it's like they've suggested that that might be the theme for literally the last 2 or 3 meetings, and then the one this year was actually branded rebuilding trust, and that only made us trust them less, which is why I think it's in a downward spiral. So they're definitely registering. um it's hard to tell how they're going to react to things. I mean, there are things they've backed off of. It's kind of an inside baseball, I guess, but they backed off
like
natural
digital.
asset companies.
Oh,
We don't have vaccine passports. Justin Trudeau is probably just announcing new tyranny, but he came out today, literally came out today saying the immigration crisis is like way out of control. It's screwing up Canada. So they're responsive on at least some level. They're not super responsive, but they're definitely aware. They've registered it. And they act more and more desperate. But the thing is if they know people are pissed, what they're going to do is stoke the anger to get something dumb to happen that they can take advantage of. And
right.
so, yeah, I talk a lot about this, about the provocations. People get pissed off at me. They're like, you're telling people not to act. I'm like, no, literally, I'm telling you to do something productive instead of flipping out.
So we don't have
There,
another January 6th happen. Yeah.
like literally, like I hold up this example all the time. There's a woman in California. Her name's Erin Friday. She created an initiative to put trans medicine issues directly on the California ballot to bypass their government and let the voters decide. Like she's running serious ground hustle to try to get the necessary signatures to get this thing on the ballot, to run this campaign, to get donors, to bring awareness to the issue. Like, you want to go get mad and flip out? Why don't you channel your energy into something productive that might actually either make a difference or really reveal the nature of what's going on one way or the other? Why don't you build your community? Why don't you go work with some kids in a productive way? There are a million things to do. That's not sitting on your hands. It's not like, I send out things all the time on the social media that I participate in too, that it's like, contact your legislators about this, like the WHO pandemic treaty. Like, why don't you get involved in working on stopping that instead of just like yelling
Mm.
and chanting slogans and wanting to show up and have a rally? You know that showing up to a rally like J6 is bait. So why don't you do what they don't expect and actually get direct civic engagement and go start doing things that might really make a difference? Start calling your legislators, start calling people in media that you know to get stories out. There's a million things you can be doing. You can be building your own apparatus to get messaging out or to connect people. Um,
And
a
that's
million
smart
things.
for many reasons. You're not, you're not putting yourself in a vulnerable spot to be taken advantage of. And right, there's not some big crazy event, and now you're out there in the public, and people can take photos of you, and you're not making yourself vulnerable by going in person to something that could be manipulated.
Right. Yeah. So like the left has been seriously successful doing a project called community organizing. And one of the things that they figured out to do with community organizing was to do what's called ballot chasing, to get ballots into the ballot boxes under whatever set of rules. So, fight for clean elections, really get involved in that fight in your state. But then it's like, that's serious, it's important, but don't anticipate necessarily, especially in some of these states, that you're going to win. So you're involved in these initiatives, you're supporting these initiatives, donating time or money or activity or getting started on it. But at the same time, start figuring out what are the laws and how do we, if the game is get ballots across the finish line, how do we help get ballots across the finish line for our side? And go spend your time actually doing that legally, obviously, in all regards. How do we help low propensity Republican voters stop feeling like they're doomed out and give up and get them out to vote?
Find your local Republican cemetery and hand out absentee ballots. That's what I've been doing.
That's right. Find the ones that were born in 1900. Because, but don't despair either. Because I just saw the headline the other day that they found a bunch of that in like Los Angeles County, which turns out to be pretty corrupt, and they purged tons of them off. I mean, lots of. I mean, I think, I don't want to misspeak in public, but I think the number was over 1 million, like bogus people on the voter registration in LA. So like, get involved and do something useful. Like, there's a million useful things to do. And if you don't know how, so the phrasing would be a leader or become a leader. And if you don't know how, then support somebody who is.
Did you say one of the things that the powers that be have sort of backed off of was the passport ID or the digital ID?
The original idea was a health passport, and they definitely had to back off and reconfigure for that. They're back on track for
America. I mean, who gave them
pushback?
Actually,
some of the stuff that I've read, I mean, America did give them pushback. Some Europeans gave them pushback too. But one of the things that I read is that if something between like 11 or 12 up to like 14 or 15% of the population, which turns out not to be this huge number, it's a lot of people, don't get me wrong. But if they are too non-compliant to go along with the program, then they usually have a very hard time implementing it. They have to use an awful lot of force, and it creates the downward spiral that I think we actually saw with the COVID passport attempt.
It's amazing how little of the population you actually need to.
Everybody thinks it's like 50 plus one, and it's not 50% plus one. It's like, to get a movement going that actually can make a difference, is like 3 or 4%. To get a non-compliance basis that disrupts their plans, it's like 10 to 15%. And that's composed of people who are rejecting it and people who are just skeptical. It's not hard to work to make people skeptical. It's like, tell people like that, here are some purposes for what they could achieve with this kind of thing. Let's be skeptical of whatever policy that they put forth, and let's make it be heard and be known that we don't approve of it. And then we can see where the chips fall. But forcing them to be tyrannical actually ends up creating more people being scared of them, which means it's actually a net win, even if we don't win in the policy domain. So there's tons of stuff to do that's not like fall into the trap of like doing something crazy and rash because they're trying to make you mad.
Like, right. It's a whole cycle. They feel like they're losing control. They enact some policy, or they do something that makes them come off even more controlling. People notice, people push back. It's interesting to see, like, who can affect who, really. It's like, you get them to show their hand, and then people can be like, oh, wow, this was your plan the whole time, which COVID is a perfect example of.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm pretty much not a sit on your hands kind of guy. But at the same time, I do think people should be judicious in what they do, so that A, we don't do something stupid, and B, that we can move the needle in our direction, even if we take losses to do so.
Yeah. So we have this was funny to see Trudeau complaining about, oh my God, there's too many illegals for Canada to absorb. It's why would he publicly state this? It just seems like a big admission of failure.
Well, there's two possible reasons. I assume we're about to listen to him.
Yes, here we go.
It's really important to understand the context around immigration. every year we bring in
I guess these are protesters.
Yeah, they're
heckling
not
him.
happy.
about 450, now close to 500,000 permanent residents a year. And that is part of the necessary growth of Canada. It benefits our citizens, our communities, it benefits our economy. These are the levels that we have stabilized and grown steadily over the past years, because that's what Canada needs to continue to have a strong economy and strong communities. However, over the past few years, we've seen a massive spike in.
I give him credit for that, being like, "Can you shut the fuck up?"
It's so hard. I mean, he deserves every bit of it, but it's so hard to talk when people are doing that.
Temporary immigration, whether it's temporary foreign workers or whether it's international students in particular, that have grown at a rate far beyond what Canada has been able to absorb. To give an example, in 2017,
Why couldn't they go inside this structure here and like, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I'm
answer
making a guess
questions.
that structure is not quite ready yet, but
Yeah. All right. I was just like,
even
so
better maybe. But
get away from the people. Okay. Well, he's clearly, I feel like, shitting himself.
so yeah, one of two things is happening, but he's also said two things. So just to be thorough, one thing is he is the most unpopular politician in Canadian history now. So he might be
Wow.
shitting his pants and trying to save his poll numbers because they're bad. It's real bad.
He's up
On
for
the other
re-election
hand,
in what, a year and a half or
yeah,
less?
something like that. Yeah, it's like 25. So on the other hand, we have what I suggested on the Twitter there, which is that they've hit the point where the crisis is big enough, and so now they're going to come up with some solution that happens to borrow a lot of people. We'll say borrow a lot of people's liberties in order to fix the problem. We're going to need digital surveillance. We're going to need digital IDs or something, because we got to fix this problem. And the only way to control it will be some next step into tyranny. So one of those two things. But listen to the two things that he actually said. The first thing he said is we're bringing in 500,000 new people a year, and because our economy depends on it.
Wow.
Canada cannot supply itself without importing workers, is what he's saying. So he's already describing a nation in free fall due to whatever else is going on in Canada, which is probably a lot to do with the policies his parties put forth that have been supported by the more radical NDP. But at the same time, he then goes on to say, so the permanent resident, 500,000 new people a year, which proportionally to Canada is a lot of people. That's important and good because our economy needs us to import workers, because apparently we can't make Canada work with Canadians. But then he goes on to the next step and he's like, but holy shit, these temporary people we're bringing in are flooding our whole system. And I'm guessing that he's not backing off. It could be just a shrewd play to get people to back off from being angry at him. But I think he's actually going to come out soon. He's setting the stage to be able to come out soon and say something, tinfoil hats back on, and say something like, we need to fix this. And here's this solution that we've come up with. And it's super important. And it's just also so going to be the case that it takes away a lot of your liberties in order to do it.
Right. The migrants are just a catalyst to whatever they actually wanted to get done.
Remember when we were talking about the Cloward-Piven strategy?
Oh my God. So is it the same thing basically happening in the US?
Yeah, the importation mechanisms are different. But yeah.
Well, now I'm depressed again.
No. We have allowed these people to be too empowered, and so there's a certain amount of pain we're going to have to endure, but a brighter future can await us. As Benjamin Franklin said, the sun is rising on America.
Fuck says the number of seats for the Conservative Party is huge. Alberta is like all conservative. He won't survive in the next election. Oh, that's
good. I do a fair amount of stuff with the Albertans, and Alberta is the most inspiring political entity on the North American continent right now. Amazing things are happening. Big shout out to David Parker and his Take Back Alberta campaign that's made most of that possible. And it should be replicated across Canada. It should also be replicated in as many US states as possible. So yeah, for sure.
Okay. Wow. Okay, which leads God, I wanted to promote your new book too. Tell us about your new book and what led us to this place, and how long did this take to birth?
Well, it turns out that it took very little time to birth on my end because I'm more of a midwife to this book. No, really, its primary author is a guy named Logan Lansing, who's literally a dad, a very smart dad, as it turns out, from Wisconsin. He and his wife a few years ago were in a situation similar to what you're in right now. They were producing a baby, and he started to wonder, what world am I bringing the kid into? Now he's already kind of tapped into what's going on, but he started realizing the amount of queer theory that's in the schools, the comprehensive sexuality education, all of the gender stuff, the whole 9 yards. But it's all backed by an idea called queer theory, as he figured out pretty quickly. He studied some of my work, but he also started reading on his own. I think he started reading on his own first, and then he started studying my work. And he put together a manuscript last summer. I don't know exactly how long it took him to write it, but he sent it to me at the end of the summer last year, and I started reading it. He's just wanted, like, advice or whatever. And I was like, this is freaking brilliant. And I reached out to him and asked him how he wanted to publish it, asked him if he wanted me to like jump in. We doubled the length of it after I got involved. It's still a short and easy read. But we wanted to expose queer theory as the doctrine of a religious cult that primarily attacks kids, that's based in sex and in the idea of transformation, which sounds like cool, but it's not cool. It's trying to make people into something they are not. And so we dove into the literature and built out the book for me, my involvement started late last summer, working through the fall. We released it on Leap Day, so on the 29th of February. So my involvement for this was pretty short. Like I said, I'm mostly the midwife. Logan Lansing, which is at Logan Lansing on Twitter, is the main author, and it's really his writing style and his primary research. A lot of it shocked me, where they're pretty clear in their writing and the education aspects of queer theory, that the goal, like for one guy, Kevin Kumashiro, that we quote, talks about how the point of queer education is to lead children into a personal crisis and then structure the environment around them so that they resolve the crisis in a productive direction, according to the queer educator. And so it's like they're literally doing cult techniques like trauma bonding on kids in the guise of education, using queer theory. And so it's pretty good at exposing what's going on in the schools, what it is, how it got there, how it operates. And that was our real agenda. But the C word, and there's a lot of C words, but this C word is cult.
Oh,
no, cult. Very close. One letter off. Cult. So we start with it. He started it, and that's what really caught my attention. When he sent me the first draft of the book, the first sentence said, "America's schools are in the grips of a religious cult." And I was like, oh, this guy's not pulling punches. I'm in.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, it just seems like the whole not really paradigm, but the whole framework of how kids are educated, it's just been completely upended. And if they can if they can have you from the youngest age possible doubting your own mind and body, then they can control everything else you believe.
That's what I try to tell people all the time. So like with the Ketanji Brown Jackson, we make fun of her because she couldn't answer what is a woman. And she said, "Oh, I'm not a biologist." And it's like, this is like it's really funny, but it's a deadly serious point, which is what she said is, I can't answer a basic question about reality by myself. I need an expert. I need to defer that question. So for a Supreme Court justice now, and she was sitting she's being confirmed at the time, to be in that position is one thing. But imagine that you're taking children in the guise of their education, 5, 6, 10 years old, and telling them you can't answer basic questions about reality for yourself. You need to ask an expert every time. You don't know if you're a boy or a girl. You need to ask the counselor. You don't know if you're a boy or a girl. You need to ask the doctor. And by the way, let's keep your parents out of it because they really might not like it. That's seriously messed up.
Yeah, your
but
parents
it's also perfect dependency
who are going to care about you the most, love you the most, whose biological imperative it is to usher you through life. No, let's keep secrets from them. And yeah, but talk to your teacher who stops thinking about you as soon as it's 5:01 p.m. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's just absolutely it's absolutely crazy. And to set the kids up to believe that their parents, your parents probably won't accept this, so let's keep this between us. And your parents might actually be the dangerous thing. And a lot of kids have parents who don't accept them. They're not inclusive. That is serious poison to be telling children, and it's all buried in this approach to both queer education, but also social justice education. And the guy whose name you couldn't say earlier, Paulo Freire, is one of the key figures that we expose in this book to explain where it kind of comes from and how it got there.
And they know they're exploiting at a certain age, preteen and teen is the kind of you're gonna just, everyone reaches an age where they want to rebel from their parents, whatever it is. If you're raised more religious, you're gonna push away from that. If you're raised in kind of like a hippy dippy parental environment, you're gonna maybe be more conservative. And like they know this, and they're just taking advantage of every kid's desire to kind of rebel against their parents, because you are trying to find out, in what ways can I be independent? You're not quite an adult yet, but how can you have more autonomy over your life? Oh, here's a perfect way to stand out against your parents is
that's right.
is
And
transition and have them pay for a new set of genitals, which are going to be expensive.
Yeah, and then seriously for the rest of your life. And it gives them the opportunity to put the power into those rebellious teenagers' hands and shit test their parents in an incredible way, with the threat now of the school or the state getting involved and possibly revoking parenthood rights and responsibilities for parenting. For literally being a parent, you can lose your capacity to parent. In several states, something like 13 states have already kind of pushed these bills, and the states you wouldn't necessarily expect, like Maine.
Wow. Damn, that's like really exciting / scary. I was signing up for a new gym today. The question I forgot to ask the guy signing me up was like, I wanted to say, like, do you allow dudes to come into the girls' locker room by any chance? I'll have to ask him next time.
Isn't that like it's a seriously legit question? It's
Yeah.
a seriously a Planet Fitness thing. Like, I saw that picture of that bro. Dude's in there shaving. Like, I don't care if you wrap a towel around your waist and pretend it's a skirt. Like, you are a dude. Like, that is
Mhm.
dude city. And now in like Scotland, if you said that, you could be criminalized. You can't
Wow.
misgender somebody. That's bullshit. The people, let's say another obvious thing we're not allowed to say. The person misgendering a trans person is the fucking trans person. And all the people who are going around enabling this, that's the person doing the misgendering. Everybody else who's telling them the truth is being held to account. That's how you can tell that this is like serious inversion that's indicative of something as evil as communism or Satanism is behind this. There's like nothing else. Or you take something like telling somebody the truth and criminalize it and encourage lying to somebody, particularly somebody who's vulnerable and like is putting out a pretty public distress signal.
Yeah, these people all need help. God's cosmic ball, like, says almost black pilled Brit here, trying to fight total despair, but you guys do occasionally give me glimmers of hope, so keep up the good work, I guess. Oh.
Well, I don't want you to black pill. I will tell you, JK is putting up a hell of a fight right now, and like, it's worth getting behind that. She's like, you're going to pass these laws? Fine, come arrest me. It's like, I hate to say it, but that's the right attitude. But that's for doing something. You don't want to get arrested for doing something that's actually unreasonable. You want to get arrested if you're going to get arrested by a corrupt regime for doing something that is actually reasonable. And because it proves their tyranny out. It's literally the concept where Jesus saying of turn the other cheek. Somebody is doing something tremendously insulting to you in front of a crowd, turn and say, go ahead. You want to hit me on one side, hit me on the other.
Look at this. Yeah, J.K. Rowling calls for own arrest for anti-trans rhetoric amid Scotland's new hate crime law. She's literally calling for her own arrest. Wow.
Yeah, she said straight up. She said that, this person's a man, this person's a man, this person's a man, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, and if you don't like that I said it, if it's against the law, come arrest me. And then she's like, and here's to a free Scotland or something like that.
Wow.
Like, no, totally. This is like, this woman, not to make it inappropriate or whatever, but this woman has balls like the size of freaking a bull.
Yeah, she says, I'm currently out of the country, but if what I've written here qualifies as an offense under the terms of the new act, I look forward to being arrested when I return to the birthplace of Scottish enlightenment, she concluded. Scotland's first minister, Husma Youssef, said the bill was about protecting people from a rising tide of hatred. And she says, unless your behavior is threatening or abusive and intends to stir up hatred, then you have nothing to worry about in terms of how the new offense is being created. Oh, that's what he said in a new statement. Jesus.
Yeah, no, this is stir up hatred. That's a completely subjective, completely bogus standard. And so they could give her a pass and then crack down on small everyday citizens, which is more likely how they're going to act. But look who you've got in your corner if they do. And it wouldn't be the first time she stood up for small people, even though she's got tons of reach and power and money. So yeah, that standard of this is hate and that's not hate. They could declare, they could declare like that practicing Christianity is hate, but practicing Islam is not, or they could do all kinds of things. And this is just totally the standard of this is hateful is utterly subjective, which means for politicians, it's useful to whatever set that they want to pander to. It's useful to whatever power is over them, or it's useful to whoever, themselves for whomever they want to punish. It's an absolutely unacceptable standard.
Jeez, good for her. Yeah, she does have incredible balls. Take the Ride 23. Much respect to you both on raising awareness about the technocratic control agenda. Get your physical, mental, and spiritual grind going. No one is coming to save you. Be a light for others. Disobey.
Yeah, that's basically what I do. That's why I got this sweet.
But you need to be taking sweet selfies like this guy right here.
Look at this. But look at this color on my skin. That's because I've been going out in the sun and getting absolutely torched every day since it's nice out.
Ooh, good for you. Where are you? Are you in Florida?
I'm in Tennessee. Allegedly, we're going to have bad storms tonight and maybe a tornado. So we'll see how that goes.
That's April showers for you.
Yeah, April's a month of turbulent weather here.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. So tell me how you arrived at the digital cattle theory.
Well, the concept I've actually been talking about, I talked about this idea back in the day called the digital gulag. A gulag is a re-education camp. A lot of people think it's like a concentration camp, but it's actually designed to re-educate people into communism. So the primary purpose of the gulag isn't just a work camp, but is also to bring people into an ideological belief. So that's very important. And I used to talk about how the gulag of the 21st century is not so likely to be like a hard labor camp somewhere, although they could add those in for the really bad people. It's actually digital conditioning. And so it's just taking that concept to the next level. And I did another, for example, podcast a couple of years ago called Data Are the New Oil. And maybe it's Data is the New Oil. Maybe I did the grammar wrong on purpose, but I don't know. But at any rate, the idea is if they're going to pay you, and this is what I put in the thread, if they're going to pay you some universal basic income, obviously on a central bank digital currency, they're going to pay you. Nobody pays anybody for nothing. Mm-hmm. You have to be providing something back in return. And what it turns out to be, and this is just the model that's worked across like basically social media is free. The saying is, if it's free, then you're the product. Well, what are you producing for them? And it turns out you're producing large amounts of data that they can turn around and sell. You're also, creating advertising exposure and all of that. So fine. And they're selling you as a product to advertisers. There's this many people who are this interested in XYZ. So you want to advertise on our platform. So you're the product. But you are also a producer. They can mine you for data. I think Facebook did this magnificently back in the day where there was every other day. I don't think Facebook itself was necessarily doing it, but companies were using Facebook. And it was like, which pretty princess are you? Which kind of rock are you? What tree are you? What springtime flower are you? And you take all these little personality inventories, miniature personality inventory tests, and you're like, I'm the pink Power Ranger. I'm, Brianna or whatever. And it's like all these different things. But what they were doing was they were gathering psychometric data off of you. In fact, highly granular psychometric data that's even more granular than like big five personality inventories. If you take enough of these over the aggregate, and that's not even with it, like that doesn't even count scraping your account for the things that you type or the things that you click on. Like click on by mistake. One video on Instagram of some dude grilling chicken, and your Instagram for 3 days is nothing but people grilling chicken. So you know that they're scraping the data of what you click on. Like, you're like, it's a problem. So they take that data and they do stuff with it. So there's this paper I read, and I do want to give proper credit. A friend of mine came up with the term digital cattle. So it was his idea to start calling this phenomenon that. But I read this paper a couple of years ago. It's actually written by a left-wing guy. It's not this like crazy conservative paper. It's an academic paper called Psychodata. It's by a author named Ben Williamson. So you can go look it up if you want yourselves. And Ben Williamson says that the purpose of gathering all of this data, and he's particularly talking about in schools using the social emotional learning program, but it would extrapolate. The purpose is to create, in his words, perfectly controllable political subjects and perfectly moldable economic participants or consumers. So the goal is to gather enough data off of you to know exactly how you'll behave under various circumstances online.
Find your
various
activists and find your consumers, basically.
That's right. Exactly. And if you need to turn the activists up, you send stuff that triggers them, and you have their psychometric data. So you know what kinds of algorithms could be personalized to their account that might do it. And if you need to turn it down, and I'm not saying that they have the technology to make this work yet, like AI is kind of stupid still, but it's coming. And if you need to turn it down so that people basically sit this one out and stay home, it's like the meme we joked about earlier, looking at our phone with the NPC. Like, I don't know what I'm mad about yet. They didn't tell me. So they can decide when to make you mad and when not to make you mad. But also they can decide like, oh, you're clicking on this kind of stuff. Or like my friend had her little like heart rate monitor app or whatever, and it's tracking her health and her sleep and all this. And she sends me a message one day. She's like, ha ha ha, this is hilarious. It says the number 2 reason I lost sleep last year was masturbating. And like, did you ever tell your watch that you were playing with yourself? And she's like, no. And I'm like, it fucking figured it out.
My God. What?
And in principle, it could then correlate your buying habits over the next 6 hours after you do that. So then it starts putting like stuff that triggers you to want to go to, I guess you can't go to Pornhub anymore. I guess that's out. But
like, they know your algorithm. Like, yeah, they know what you're buying. They know what ads they're showing.
They know what you're buying, when you're buying it, what its relation. Well, I should say, let me be very clear. In principle, they can know that. I don't know what they actually know. I don't know what their processing power is. I don't know what the data scraping capacity is yet. But in principle,
especially if you're masturbating with the wrist that you have your Apple Watch on.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a pretty distinct motion, I guess. But like, no, I swear, I was making
a calorie burned is a calorie burned. I'm so glad
correct.
I don't have one of those things. Jesus.
Yeah, me either. But like, when you start thinking about that, like the goal of gathering the data is to be able to sell the data. And the point of selling the data is to sell it to marketers who want to basically create a perfectly tailored marketing program to you and your psychological triggers. And then to sell it to people who want to exercise political control over you in whatever veins. And then you start attaching that to like a CBDC and a social credit system, and they can have a complete system of control, but also not just of control, because you don't just control cows. That's not the point of cattle. And here's the cattle part. You extract something from them. If they're dairy cows, you extract milk. If they're beef cattle, you extract, through a slightly more brutal process, you extract beef. And of course, leather and other things. So the fact of the matter is that you are being turned into a cow that produces data. That data is used to further condition your circumstances to keep you in your pen, keep you well behaved, and more importantly, keep you producing more data. Because the data to keep people under control and to facilitate these high control environments is extraordinarily valuable. One of the reasons the Soviet Union broke down, one of the reasons that communist China under Mao almost fell apart, although it got rescued, that's another story, is because they couldn't distribute goods and services at in a way that was satisfactory. So people were in misery, and misery and instability eventually, even under tyranny, can create revolutionary circumstances that will try to break you free of that, where people will start to reject it. Well, if they can keep you, you will own nothing and you will be happy. If they can keep you in that state of fat, dumb, and happy, like a cow that's taken care of, then they can control you much longer and much better. But to keep you in that state, they need to know what they need to know in order to keep you in that state. So they have to extract lots of data from you. So you are providing the instrument of your own control in both the market and in political terms. And in exchange, they're giving you just enough to be able to make a kind of squiggly living. And then, of course, the whole thing will probably work like a Black Mirror video game where they're throwing you like sustainability credits. Hey, you're allowed to take 3 flights per year. I don't know how you're going to take 3 because normally you go somewhere and you come back and that's 2, and then you got this odd one. But hey, you could sell your sustainability credits to rich people who then they play in the same system, but they don't really have any rules because you get to have like an extra outfit for your digital avatar for when you go on digital vacation with your little headset that you still had to pay for. You can have an extra outfit or whatever cool stuff on your digital swag that literally is not real and doesn't cost anything, and you're happier. And then the rich people can go take your vacation for you and see the Mona Lisa without any of the riffraff in the way.
Oh my God.
So it's like the Matrix where the people are the batteries, but they're not providing body heat, which was always kind of a stupid premise because there's just not that much of it. And I always thought that was really dumb because like, if you look at the reason they need the people is like, because, oh yeah, the sky is close. They can use solar power. And then like it shows the video of like, they pan up to the sky and it's constant lightning. You think that these things robots that are so intelligent, they could build the Matrix and extract body heat out of human beings. They couldn't figure out how to extract energy out of lightning. Like, come the fuck on. That's fake. But anyway, the point is that they're not extracting body heat and energy out of you in this Matrix. They're extracting the data needed to control you and keep you in the so-called happy state.
Right. Keep you happy and keep you thinking these are all your own choices because a rebellious populace is going to cost them resources.
Yeah, it might cost them actually the ability to keep controlling the farm. Right. A rebellious populace in the United States busted up that aristocracy, for example. The rebellious populace in the Scottish Enlightenment broke some of that same aristocracy again. And so, these are the things that they want control over.
So, okay, like how far along are we in this process? Who do you think are the main players?
Well, I mean, the main players are easier to figure out because, well, not all of them, but some of them because they give lots of money to it. We know that it's being coordinated through entities like the United Nations, World Economic Forum, and CCP that are working together. That's not in real question. We know that the WHO is trying to like inject a power grab through this. It's a subsidiary of the United Nations. We know that things like the Council for Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission and so on are kind of behind this. So there's this network of elites, some of whom throw gobs of money into this pot. Who throws gobs of money into this pot? Well, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation does, so they do. The Pritzkers do, so that's one. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, they both do. There are other foundations as well. There's a list of funders into what's called Arabella Advisors. We know that whatever's going on with the super big banks is somehow looped in. So Larry Fink at BlackRock is a face we can stick on that. And so you can start to get this idea of roughly who the maybe few hundred stakeholder experts will be who are really going to contour this, largely by who's giving it lots of money. Soros is obviously fueling something, but Soros is actually kind of against what we're talking about. So he's a complicated player in all of this.
Why is he against it? You think he'd be for it?
No, his wet dream is called the open society. So when he looks over at China and he looks at what they're trying to build with some of this stuff, he sees that as actually a closed-ended approach, and he doesn't want a closed-ended approach. He thinks that that's what's caused most of the tyranny, whether it's from the Soviets or whether it's from the Nazis or whatever in the 20th century. So he wants this fiction that he calls an open society that I think is just a line-for-line transliteration of the critical theorist idea of a liberated society. So he wants that. So when they start conditioning people to live in like kind of locked down 15-minute city, so on crap, he would see that as a move into a technocratic world that is already decided what the world's supposed to look like. So he's not down with that. But because he's ultimately aligned with the processes of say critical theory, and he has this vision of this utopia, it turns out he's a fellow traveler to a lot of it. And a lot of people don't understand it. They say, well, George Soros hates America, and that's what it's about. That's not quite the point. George Soros wants to short sell America. He thinks America is an overvalued asset that he can make a ton of profit, both financially and politically, by shorting. But that requires getting lots of people inside of America to be unstable about America. And it requires getting a lot of people inside of America to hate America. So he funds initiatives in education to do that, and he funds initiatives into critical theory, and he funds the border and the crime stuff, as you see with the DAs and the migrants. So what he also does is disrupts what's going on in China. He does not freaking like China. China named him an international terrorist and literally called him a demon on Twitter last year from state media. And so they don't like George Soros, because George Soros also doesn't like them. But in his book, Alchemy of Finance, he explains that he took his ideas in the 80s to the CCP in China, and they loved his ideas because it allowed them to figure out how to transcend Marxism into the next stage of application. And so they're using Soros's ideas, but they're not using it in the direction Soros wants. And he has these same misgivings at times about the World Economic Forum and United Nations and so on. But he still thinks that we've got to short sell the US, we've got to break up the US. So it's not that he hates the US, it's that he thinks he can short it and make a lot of money off of it, or
Like a
political
stock.
power.
This is a good question from K-Max. Why did the super rich Larry Fink of BlackRock types fund this DEI woke stuff? Is it just a distraction from their massive wealth? I guess I always question the motive of the super rich funding this Marxism. Yeah, I think right. It's control.
No, they want to shift the balance of power to China and out of the West. And so to do that, you have to destabilize the West and make the West completely dysfunctional. So they fund this in the United States because A, it allows them to control the corporations and to, by extension, the people, and B, because it doesn't work. It actually destabilizes the country. It prevents us from being able to be productive. How many corporations have come out in the past couple months and said it's too expensive to do manufacturing in the United States because of all this complicated DEI crap? And that's part of why. But at the same time, Larry Fink is heavily invested in China and in China's success. And so the goal literally is to this is the kind of stuff that I got in trouble for going on Rogan, but Rogan was tracking with me. The goal is to diminish the United States and the West and hand the torch of global leadership, superpower status to China to facilitate the Belt and Road. Of course, I'm sure that they're invested in the things that will profit in those directions when that happens. But the reason that he funds DEI is because it's a huge instrument of control, and B, it just doesn't work. And I think they know it doesn't work. And by trying to force something that doesn't work, they break the system. The goal isn't to make a functional US.
They also know DEI is our weakness. So it's literally going to be our downfall.
Yeah, well, they know that the people have literally like an elementary school level understanding of like civil rights type issues. They know that we're emotional about them. They know that we don't know how the law works, but then the law also has, over the past 50 years, has had a large number of loopholes worked into it, not just in practice, not just in judicial decision, but also worked into the legislation. For instance, disparate impact analysis, which is the basis for all of the DEI analysis in law, and all the frivolous lawsuits around Civil Rights Act got codified in the 1991 rewrite of civil rights law. And so it's kind of been woven in at all levels, this loophole for them to be able to hammer society with this obvious injustice that's perpetrating itself in the name of justice. So yeah, it's a total weakness for us. Same thing's happening with this asylum status coming across the border. There's a totally legitimate purpose to claiming asylum that's being completely exploited to the point where we can only consider this thing to be a loophole that's being exploited now. If the asylum seeking process were able to be assessed and adjudicated in a timely manner, so that literally 99% of the people showing up and claiming it are going to get shipped back under those circumstances in a timely manner, then yeah, that would be fine. But the fact of the matter is there's so many, they overwhelmed the system that it becomes a loophole, because they come in, they say they're claiming asylum, they get given a court date 6 years later, and then for the next 6 years, they're just here and undocumented. And a complication, we'll say, is the nicest way to put it, to the system that they are now halfway or quasi integrated into.
Right. And they're being told exactly like what dialogue to say.
They are being coached to do this, and somebody's paying for that. And the people who are paying for that are people who want to damage the capacity of the United States or the other Western nations to govern their own affairs.
That's depressing. K-Max again, the Attorney General of Chrissie State, New York. Don't remind me. Letitia James has used lawfare to bankrupt several outlets on the right. Is Letitia James doing Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals 101?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It is based on all of that, but the question is, like, is she actually? I think she might actually be backfiring for them. Like, she might actually get hit with this kind of huge Eighth Amendment lawsuit now over what she's done with Trump, and some of that's already starting to get called into question. But yeah, she's definitely using lawfare in a completely illegitimate way to try to damage political opponents and to advance her own political causes. And these people are, all of these activists are, they're ingrained with, they may not be able to rattle off the rules for radicals, but they live the rules for radicals the way that typical Christians live the 10 Commandments. And it's just part of their vibe. And so, yeah, definitely. And she's a huge problem. I have a feeling that she's going to be another, like Fannie Willis turned out to be one of the instruments of their undoing. I think that she might end up being another one because she's too aggressive, coming in too hot.
I would love to see that. K-Max again, were the American prisons actually overcrowded? I saw a sustained attack from media and academia on the cops and law. Ask Chrissy about New York City crime now since the anti-cop agenda passed. Ugh, it's a mess. The city's
been riding the subway much.
I try not to, but I usually do my walk from Grand Central to Compound Media every week. And I don't know if it's just because it's like a pregnancy paranoia, but I'm constantly worried I'm going to be pushed into the street. And I don't know if like that's normal or if I'm drinking too much coffee or what, but like,
yeah, it's probably,
my head is always on a swivel, but I think, yeah, maybe it's the added like being pregnant thing. Like I'm slower. I'm 40 pounds more. I can't really run. Everything hurts.
Counterattack is limited. Yeah, you got some issues.
I can't kick as high as I used to.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, if American prisons were overcrowded. I do know there was a gigantic, there was definitely a gigantic strategic push to make people believe that and to capitalize upon it. It, like all things, is probably something that was partly true and partly false, that got exacerbated in a direction that was politically fruitful. But there certainly has been a push for people to believe that. I don't know if it was actually true or not.
Okay.
I'm not a prisons expert.
No, you can only do so much, James. There's only so many hours in a day. Jeremy David, when are we getting James on FNT? Oh my God. Have you never done it? You would be so great on FNT.
I have not.
Okay. Maybe I'll put in a word. I don't know how good my word is, but yeah, you would be so great on that show. Very true, Fieldy. I may also get stuck on the ground like a turtle on its back, which has happened to me when I've leaned back in a chair too much. You actually like can't get up. I'm in my turtle phase right now. Okay, interesting. Let's see. I wonder if I distracted you away from your digital cattle rant here. So are we at a point where we cannot turn this ship around?
Nah, I think we're already turning it around. I'm more optimistic than most of the people. I'm like I am, to be fair, pretty close to the painting. But like I keep saying, I think that they're in a death spiral. I think they're going to do a lot of damage, but I actually think that what we're seeing is an awakening. People are much more curious about the American founding, the Constitution, the principles of the nation than I've ever seen them in my entire life. The numbers of people showing up to things is still on a steady increase. The energy is still going up. So I think that I personally, and I get in a lot of trouble for this, I actually am more afraid that we're going to overreact than that we are going to successfully react to put an end to this. I don't think we're getting through. I think some bad shit's still going to happen and it's going to wake people up, but I don't think it's going to be like when COVID hit, like something bad happened and everybody was like, oh no, it's probably real. I don't think
that's another event that can be taken advantage of. And
oh yeah, totally. And a lot of people are pretty pessimistic that we'll be able to weather that and that things will be okay. I'm actually fairly optimistic that pretty much no matter what it is, we're going to blame them. And the worse they make it, the madder at them we're going to get, even if we have all kinds of crazy shit happening to have to deal with at the same time.
So hopefully, all right. Hopefully this doesn't happen on the eclipse, which is in like 6 days.
Yeah.
Maybe the
It'd be
Black
great
Swan.
if they didn't do all this stupid occult stuff, but they do actually do a lot of stupid occult stuff.
Yeah, the summon. We don't need to summon things, okay? Like we got enough going on. I'm about to give birth, people.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, it's like this is like we're already at Ghostbusters level. We don't need more.
Was there anything going back to your Rogan appearance that you feel like you really changed his mind on, or something you said that really surprised him, or something like a point where you feel like
Oh,
you
there was a
won?
few. Yeah, there are some winner moments. One is literally with that, like Boeing's doing it like on purpose. Like he tracked with that a lot, and then he's like, "Yeah, that's like that makes sense." And I was like, "Whoa!" And there's some dude put a clip of it out there of me, and it's like watch. Maybe it was some dude. I think it was I think it was Dave Rubin. It was put out a clip, and it was like watch James Lindsay change Rogan's mind in real time.
But why
So
would Boeing do that to themselves? Do you think they're being paid off? Someone somewhere.
I don't know. The goal is not to continue. The goal is not to make profit, even if it's just that they're aligning with the incentives. The goal is for sustainability and inclusion. Those industries, the travel industry, the shipping industry, the cruise industry, all of those industries have to commit suicide. They cannot meet their sustainable requirements for the stupid Agenda 2030. So to meet net zero, the only way they can meet net zero is basically to shut down operation. So somebody might be paid off. It might just be that the incentives are so bad that they led to making incredibly stupid decisions. Meaning, it's not necessary that somebody sitting inside of Boeing was like, "Let's tank our own company." Although they did get rid of the CEO, so who knows? Maybe he'll say what he knows. But the fact of the matter is that the incentive structures, and that's what I talked about with Rogan, with ESG and so on, I think force this or create conditions where it's extremely likely. They have to implement DEI stuff. We now know that there was a video that went kind of low key viral the other day where people were talking about it, that they were contributing, while they're having all these problems putting together their aircraft, they were contributing tens of millions of dollars a year to DEI initiatives. Like, okay, that's a problem. So it's misalignment of resources. People think about the hiring, but there's a massive misalignment of resources beyond just hiring under these things. Then you have the environmental requirements. And then with the governance structure, and this did apply to Boeing, the deal was to get with your ESG score at Boeing, when you're putting together the executive pay package, your ESG score was better if you gave yourself a 10% bonus for implementing ESG. And if you didn't implement ESG, you lost 10%. So you'd only get 90% of your regular bonus if you were not implementing ESG. But if you were implementing it, you could get 110% of your bonus, which turns out to be a 22-point swing. And so that's like a huge misincentive to implement more of this crap, which does not produce quality aircraft. It produces ideological nonsense. If the objective of all of that was to drive Boeing into a place where it's likely to have accidents and get consumers to freak out about it, then so let me be very, very clear. I don't think that Boeing is committing suicide any more than I think that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. I think it is being suicided by the broader program. So I did change his mind on that. I also there's a moment, I think I want to see the clip. I haven't gone to cut it, where I'm talking to.
I wonder if it's part of this one. I watched James Lindsay on Joe Rogan for 3 hours. I learned some stuff like Boeing is intentionally using DEI to commit suicide in order to make space for a Chinese competitor because WEF is Maoist.
Yeah, that's what I said. Sort of. I mean, this is a bad representation of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not going to play clips.
Yeah, Bad Stats is a wonderful account. I tell you what.
Oh.
But no, another one, I was talking to him about the Drag Queen Story Hour paper, like quoting how it's like they say that Drag Queen Story Hour is a preparatory introduction to alternate modes of kinship. And he's just like, what? Fuck.
Whoa, like a pseudo parent.
Yeah. And it's like totally like, he's just like, what?
'Cause who
And
normally
so
reads to you? Your
I'm sure that is a
parents.
very based clip to watch. It's super cool.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's for real. That's literally what the freaking paper says. So what are you going to do?
Wow. Holy cow. Wow, that's really cool. Okay, were there any topics or ideas that you couldn't get Joe on board for or that he was hesitant to believe?
Um, I'm not entirely convinced that he was fully on board with the Cloward-Piven strategy being deliberately employed. Uh, but then again, it's been like 2 weeks, so I don't really remember.
Yeah.
It's like a
It was
lot's happened since then. I live like a month every day, and so I don't remember.
It's true. It's like with when you're away from your dog for like an hour and then you come back and the dog's like, "You've been gone all day," because in their mind.
Your dog is like, you've been gone forever.
An entire workday. You're like, "I literally just went to the store and back." And now I've just compared you to a dog, which was not my intention. But
Yeah,
we
well,
love
no,
dogs.
my brain is like kind of functionally like that. I have so many things, so many things. Like today, there was this like I was just minding my own business, and this redhead lady was like, "Hey, do you want to come on the show later today?" And I'm like, "Shit, I had like an afternoon planned."
Oh no. I bombarded you. This was an
You're not the only
amazing
one.
there were
There's
other
like two
redheads.
more this evening that have asked, and I'm like, "Good Lord, I need to go out and get fit. My summer body is waiting."
Okay, I will not keep you from that, James. I will not keep you from you and your future thirst trappings. Um, where do you look at that? Look at that.
Oh
You
God,
should be you should cut the sleeves off those shirts.
yeah,
Um,
that's a great
is,
look.
is there anywhere you prefer people buy your latest book, The Queering of the American Child, or is any place?
Any
Where?
place is fine. I mean, if you go to the queeringbook.com website that's been scrolling across, uh, you have your pick of your favorite things or whatever. Here. This is apparently the thirst trap, though. I forgot that I had my stupid glasses on my head. Apparently,
Oh,
apparently, this is.
I love it. Yeah, you're giving me adjunct professor
I
vibes.
know, but the problem is like I can't read up close without them. It's really just an admission that like I read too much communism and kind of went blind.
Dude, if you saw my glasses, you'd feel so much better about yourself because I have I'm like a negative like 8, 8.5. Like
Wow.
I'm basically blind. So
Yeah, that's actually my actual problem. I don't have the farsightedness yet. It's that my nearsightedness got so bad that if I wear contacts that I can't read without reading glasses. So I have to put glasses on for my glasses is what it boils down to.
your body is fighting itself. It's okay. We all need a little help. And the glasses look great. So
Yeah, check that
other
out.
than following you, yeah, I love it. You should have been wearing them the whole time, James. Other than following you on Twitter at Conceptual James and checking out queeringbook.com, what else should people be aware of?
Those are the two big ones. I mean, for real. But I do have a documentary film that I'm involved in coming out in a month and a half, 2 months, end of May, that is called Beneath Sheep's Clothing. And it's got a website, which is beneathsheepsclothing.movie, which I will promise you, based on experience, is a lot of letters to type. But beneathsheepsclothing.movie, there's I got I got this thing coming out. I got talking to Rogan about it. Rogan played the trailer on his show. That was pretty nice of him and Epic. But yeah, it's to expose how communism infiltrated into the schools and churches in Soviet Union, and then to draw the parallels to what's happening with woke here in particularly schools and churches.
Oh, wow. Very cool. And when does this come out?
Hopefully, I think the target is end of May. I'm not 100% sure that it's end of May, but that's the target date right now.
Wow, this looks great. Okay, awesome. Beneath sheep's clothing dot movie.
It
Keep
says
your
May
eyes peeled.
23rd very specifically on there.
May 23rd.
That's
Okay.
probably less aspirational than I'm making out to be. It's probably correct, but I consider all future things aspirational at this point.
Yeah, mark your calendars, everyone. And one final question from Push-Ups. Would you recommend Lifton's Thought Reform?
I recommend that book very strongly. In fact, I recommend that book almost everywhere I go, almost every day.
Ooh, okay.
It's
Push-Ups.
550 pages of seriously like, oh my God, we're in Mao's China.
Ooh, so it's a nice summer read, something you could take to the beach with you. It sounds
Oh
like.
yeah, for sure. And to be clear, Chrissy, it was written in 1961. So it's a
Oh
very
wow.
old book, and you're like, oh shit, this is right now.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting. All right, I'm gonna have to put that on my spring reading list. James, Lindsay, thank you so much. My God, I only meant to go an hour, but here we are approaching 2. You're the most generous, brilliant person on the planet. Thank you so much for coming back on the program. Everyone follow James if you haven't already. Check out newdiscourses.com, check out queeringbook.com and beneathsheepsclothing.movie, hopefully coming out May 23rd. Thank you, James. You're the best. A
Yeah.
final thought for the folks, a Jerry Springer final thought.
Well, the final thought is like, we heard some people saying they're black pilled. You're like, oh my God, it's so scary. It's like, don't black pill. That's the final thought. Literally, like, don't black pill. I don't want to get all like preachy religious, but I think about this a lot now. And it's like, every Bible story, God doesn't always deliver everybody, but the only people he ever delivers when he delivers are the people who keep the faith. And so you've got to actually believe that we can make a difference, that you can make a difference, and you've got to go get involved in what small but intentional and smart way, which might become a very big way if things bounce the right way as you go along. But it's people who are falling into despair that are the least likely to be able to affect the kind of change that we need. And if we just get a few percent more, I think we're actually very close to a tipping point. People that are speaking up, speaking out, and being clear about it, then I think that we're actually going to bring back American liberty and prosperity to a level that could really be something else for the next few decades.
Yeah, and that was my my favorite part of today's show is finding out just how little percentage of the population it takes to really affect change and like be aware in the ways in which we are kind of trying to be pushed towards a sort of anti-patriotism. Like if you feel like something is being pointed at you to make you hate this country or make you more apathetic, that's probably intentional.
Damn right.
Damn straight, James, you're the best. We are going to be rating Gothix. I believe Gothix is alive right now. We love her. We're going to raid her stream. So everybody do a chirp because we're going to be doing the old stereotype of the smoke alarm. Yes, that chirp. Chirps in the chat for Gothix. James, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to the chat for your smart questions, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.